Cammie, I think this is your point there.
Okay, great. Go ahead and advance one more, please, Ryan. And I thank everyone for hanging through with our technical sort of glitches here. So the use of the Net Promoter Score, it is, you know, in thinking about customers, I think that, you know, the tendency is to only think about customers in the private sector, and that customer experience programs should be directly tied to growth and profit, and therefore they aren't applicable to service-based organizations. But we know the growth and sustainability are directly applicable to the way organizations can provide services to constituents or members or what have you. So we see it being incredibly relevant. In fact, one of the founders of the Net Promoter Score approach that we use just came out with his second edition of his book. His name is Reichelt, and it is on Amazon, but he dedicated a small, you know, section to nonprofits. So I applaud everyone for joining us, because we're at the cusp of something here, and I think it's about talking about how to serve people, and I don't think that that's, you know, relegated to the profit realm. It's about a validation of the relationship, and that's what we're looking for, and a validation of the relationship that has roots down to strategic value, long-term sustainability, and that's what we want to get at. So here's another stat that we wanted to sort of throw in here, and we just think it's the ultimate truth about, you know, developing those relationships, because it's all about resources and your time. And what it is that once someone chooses to abandon relationships with a company or organization, it's 5 to 10 times more effort to bring that person back. I'm sure plenty of you have heard that kind of statistics before, but it rings true. So this is a very proactive way to make sure that those relationships are strong, and not only strong, but where they start to falter or potentially weaken, that we have a way to capture that. So let's move on. Advance slide, please. Okay. So this is the Net Promoter Score approach that I've mentioned a couple times. The Net Promoter Score is a really simple approach to capturing the customer experience. It is about, it's just one question, and it is how likely it is that someone would recommend your organization to a friend or a colleague, or it might be a family member, whoever would have, you know, would benefit from your services. How likely is it that the people who are involved with your organization right now would actually recommend you? That makes a couple of assumptions. It is assuming that their experiences are incredibly positive, and it's also assuming that the experiences received are so steadfast and are so reliable that that person is willing to put their reputation on the line to refer someone else to you. So that is a key component of it, and that's the key component of growth, and that's the key component of being able to make sure that your organization and what it provides is providing it to a population, which we all know in a nonprofit world directly relates to sustainability, because you have something to actually sell to your donors. So on that question, if someone were to answer that it would be extremely likely that they would recommend people to you, they are considered a promoter. If they score you 6 or lower, they are considered detractors. And if they're 7 or 8, they're somewhere in the middle, and those are your fence sitters. So the whole, as you might imagine here, the whole goal of this is to have promoters, to have more promoters than detractors, because promoters will be able to be your word-of-mouth marketing team. They will be less sensitive to changes in your organization. They'll weather the storms with you easier and better. They'll give you valuable feedback. And they'll also, if you do have to charge for your services at some point or an aspect of your services, these people are less sensitive to price points. So you want promoters. Now, detractors, on the other hand, as you might expect, those are the people that could, well, number one, leave your organization, but even worse, from a long-term perspective, they could go out there, be the squeaky wheel, tell everyone about their bad experience with your organization or your program, and we all know what that is. The squeaky wheel is people will talk when they're not happy, and this is where brands get really hurt. I know that, you know, there's an airline out there, well, Delta, and if you go online, there's actually a website that some disgruntled customers have created, deltasucks.com. So, I mean, that's an extreme example, but that is an example of the stuff that we want to avoid, and that's where this program starts to hit home. Howard, is there anything else that you'd like to mention about, you know, this sort of approach and maybe a little more insight on the passives and how we, you know, consider them as a group and why they're very important as well?
What we found, Cam, over, as you well know, over a period of time, that the passives can occupy 20 to 25% of a customer group and so forth. So it's really important to understand why folks are promoters, why they are extremely like to recommend, so we can use that information to move the people that are right on the cusp of moving forward into the from the passive into the promoter realm. So we use that information, and there are a lot of them out there just kind of waiting to get a better deal, so to speak, and we need to bring them in the fold. So it's really important to understand that. But like also, we need to understand why. Never waste a detractor, so to speak. Let's find out why somebody is really upset with what we're doing, and let's see if we can't correct that. And because the research shows that if you give somebody that's upset with the organization a chance to complain, make their voice known, there's a 75% chance of keeping them. And it's always good to keep a customer. So instead of just having this lump sum number and so forth, we've seen so many years over the, you know, satisfied customers or whatever satisfaction scores. With the Reichheld Net Promoter Program allows us to do is to actually to pull apart these groups and get a better understanding and actually kind of come up with a profile and find out what's really in their mind so we can serve them more appropriately and have them become the part of the team and spreading our word. So there's a lot of information on the Net Promoter Score website. There's a couple of Harvard Business Review articles and plus the book that Cami had, so that goes a lot deeper into that. But it's basically fairly simple and easy to understand. So and the next slide that we have here gives you kind of an idea of organizations that are using this. This actually was a slide information I got from attending a Net Promoter conference a few months back. The next Net Promoter conference is going to be in San Francisco, I think the first week of February. It'd be worthwhile for people to go online and look at it and consider attending. Boy, there was really a lot of good practitioner information there. But I want to just call attention just a couple points. Cami was talking about deltasucks.com. You might note here, if you kind of can sort through it, on the left side in the middle you see Southwest Airlines, and on the right side in the middle you see JetBlue Airlines. Both of those are running Net Promoter Scores of 60. I suspect many of those that are listening to us have flown on either airlines, and you know how you feel about it. I fly Southwest a lot of times. There's not a lot of frills, but I'm very happy with them. And when there's a couple little bumps in the road, you know, we're delayed or whatever something happens, I will gladly, go along with things. And I'll tell everybody else just to fly them, and heck with a couple of the other airlines that you have to fly. So Southwest and JetBlue are up there with a 60 Net Promoter. Also up in the far right-hand corner, you can see this thing called Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is in the fast food, and they are doing a great job of understanding their customers and providing value to them, much the same that any nonprofit can do. And Chick-fil-A, as many folks know, they're only open 6 days a week. They're closed on Sunday, and they run the same gross revenue per store as McDonald's does. McDonald's open 7 days a week. Chick-fil-A is open 6. And because they take care of the customer and they do a lot of neat little things and so forth, they do really well. So that's just the beginning of the Net Promoter program. As Cammie mentioned, Reichelt got the new book out, The Ultimate Question 2.0, and the ultimate question being, you know, how are we going to drive growth? And even there, with the people that are on the cutting edge of making this thing happen, there's only 1-2 pages on nonprofits. So there's a lot of room for the nonprofits to take advantage of this and to really reap the benefits of providing value to the customers. So what are customers? You know, I mean, it's always a problem. In the next slide, we kind of pull things apart a little bit, give nonprofits a little bit of a help with this, because we found in our work, you know, it's like customers. We don't have customers, you know. We can't get our arms around it. But if we go to our boards, and a lot of the boards have business people on it, and they're able to unpack this a little bit more for the nonprofit. But we've got a kind of a list on the left-hand side, gives you kind of idea of the, quote, customer groups that nonprofits really have to deal with in one form or manner, and how we deal with them is different for each one. So Cammie put together kind of a generic question for each of the different customer groups, whether it be a member, in other words, somebody that's actually part of a nonprofit, some form or manner, maybe a volunteer or on the board. Constituents are those folks that are benefit from the organization or interact with it some way. And we've got volunteers, we've got strategic partners, and then let's not forget the employees, because employees are the bedrock of all organizations, not just nonprofits. So in each one of those situations, the loyalty question or the recommend question is a little bit different, because it's not just about the passion and so forth that somebody has. It's about, you know, are you really engaged with your organization? Would you tell somebody else to join it, to volunteer, go to work for it as the employee? Because when you recommend to ask somebody to do something, you're going beyond satisfaction. You're saying, I'm emotionally involved in this particular situation. So that's what that recommend questions is about. So like with the member thing, we've got a couple credit unions on the line. The question there, how likely is that you recommend a friend to ABC Credit Union? Because credit unions are all about having people that are of a select group become members, and the way to grow that is through the current members. The next one down, you could look at like a utility company. How likely is you to recommend? Let's see. I think there's a utility company online. How likely are you to recommend that you would participate in a program that the utility company is putting on, like water savings or so forth? Volunteers, we can understand that. How likely you recommend to somebody to give of their time to join with the mission and so forth of an organization like the Boy Scouts? The Alliance Partners makes good sense there. How likely are you recommend to another organization of similar bent, passion, and so forth, that the organization you are in, to support, to join venture in serving somebody? We have a couple nonprofits there that are listening to us that if they had other organizations in their particular community that they could work together with because they have the same like mind, they would then be more effective in what they're doing. So there's a lot of room for how the Net Promoter Program can be used in this area. So on that, Cammie, I went through that fairly quickly. How about, is there something there that you'd like to add?
I think that there's just a couple points. I think that it's really important to understand that, you know, cities and nonprofits, the budget for marketing is so low usually, and this is a way to really leverage your services and create, you know, by the recommend, you're creating sort of a word of mouth portal out there. So having your mindset here and being able to capture that is hyper important. And in capturing that, you can begin to place some value that you can get to your council people, get to your board, get to your executive directors to help validate the programs, because sometimes when you don't have profit coming in to help validate the services that you're offering, this is the metric. This is the key metric in order to do that. So, you know, instead of counting dollars necessarily, you're counting this along with other numbers that I'm sure everyone is counting. But that's another value of that, and I think it's really key. This is the metric that the nonprofits that we are working with are looking to start developing all sorts of supportive programs, succession planning. People don't get promoted unless their area of influence has, you know, has outreach that can validate that those that they are serving are ecstatic with the service that they're getting, so much so that they're helping to recommend and be your marketing team. So that's my thought there.